Hi guys, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm using the Cherry Pie kit from the Scraptastic Kit Club, which is the kit for April of 2016. And here I am just looking through the paper that came with this kit. I have already used it for another layout, and so I'm just, this paper here really stuck out for me. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. I am planning to scrapbook a Snapchat photo that I took of myself. It's a little selfie that I took at work, and it's a bit of a silly photo with a silly caption, and I plan to use that life paper for something else, hopefully today. But the journaling is actually going to be a little bit on the serious side. And so I have this Snapchat. I printed it up in black and white because the colors were just, I wanted this layout to be really, really colorful. I'm taking the Just Add Color premium class over at Big Picture Classes, and it's being taught by Vilna Furstenberg and Jasmine somebody. I forget her name. Anyhow, I haven't seen Jasmine yet. There are a number of lessons that have been released already on that class, and I only managed to take a look at one of them, but it really inspired me. And so what I was doing when I was absent for so long was I was going through my stash and looking for my brayer, because the first lesson is about using rollers and brayers on your layout. And I was really inspired by the layout that Vilna created for the first lesson. She basically used her brayer, and I'm just going to use some gesso first to prime my paper. That's going to make my paper less likely to absorb the paint. It'll keep the paint right on the surface really nice, really nicely, and keep it from soaking in. And if it soaks into cardstock, it tends to break down the fibers in the cardstock, and then it gets all wet and mushy and gross and doesn't hold up very well to the media that you put on it. So I'm just using some of my golden gesso, which is my favorite gesso. I really like it because it has a bit of tooth to it, and it dries almost like I shouldn't say chalky, but it's definitely not it's definitely not glossy. And I've tried other gessos, and I keep going back to golden because I just like the feel of it. It feels kind of luxurious under your fingers after you put it on a page. That might sound kind of silly. Anyhow, I'm just going to clean up my gesso, and then I'll get back to my thought, hopefully, which was about the layout that Vilna did. You're going to see me, and I didn't really scrap lift from her as much as I just used the same background that she used. So I'm just cleaning up my mat here so that I can use it for my next part of this layout. So now this white cardstock that came in the Scraptastic kit has now been gessoed, and I'm just drying the back of it as well. I want it to be really, really dry before I move on to the next step, which is to apply some paint with my brayer, just like Vilna did. And what she did was she applied the paint in a square, and she was using, I think she used acrylic inks, which I am going to use acrylic ink, but later on in my layout, and I'm going to use some of my old paints because I'm trying to dip into my paints because I have lots of them. So I just decided to spread out the papers that come in the kit and have a look at my paints, which are sort of behind where I'm sitting. I can look at them while I'm still sitting in my chair. And so I just grabbed these two different bottles of paint. I'm just going to put a freeze frame in here for you. So there's the Martha Stewart Crafts Multi-Surface Pearl Acrylic Craft Paint. Then the other one is by Folklore. I don't have oh yes, so the Martha Stewart color is called Hummingbird, and the folk art color is 655 Metallic Aquamarine. So you see me just applying it there with my brayer, and they're both a pearlized paint, which I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to use a pearlized paint, but it was the color that I ended up bringing a lot of my paints to work because I do some art journaling with my clients at work. And so I didn't have my full selection of colors, and the only colors that I really liked had a pearlized finish on them, but I ended up really liking how this looked even with the pearlized finish. So it's not something I would have chosen, but I think I like it even more than what I would have chosen. You saw me just add a tiny bit of heavy body white paint, and I have a set of Liquitex paints that I use for art journaling, and that one is titanium white. And my brayer wasn't really picking up the paint the way that I would have liked it to. And I remember now why I stopped using my brayer in my art journal, is that it doesn't really roll all that well. And I think I need to just get a new brayer. That one is a Ranger brayer. And so then the other thing that Vilna did was she took a roller stamp, and I really don't have any roller stamps except for this one. I have a couple of background ones actually in my art journaling stuff, but I forgot about those. So anyhow, I just took this Stampin' Up! One just to kind of add a little bit of texture in the background, or I guess interest in the background, but you're going to end up not really seeing it very much, which is fine. I wasn't really married to the idea of having it show anyways. I just want to keep my Martha Stewart mat really, really clean because my Fiskars one got really messed up from doing art journaling on it way back several years ago. So I'm trying to be especially careful when I'm using mixed media around this mat, because I know that some of those products will stick to my mat. So that pink paper is from Ellie's Studio, and it came in the kit. I'm just playing around with the idea of using the back side of it as another layer. And then this scrap was just sitting there. It has a big hunk of it cut out. It was part of a circle, and but I really like how it looks, just the edge of it there. So I'm just going to use that. Then I'm going to take a piece of this, but oops, I cut it a little bit too narrow. So I'm going to go ahead and rip a wider strip of that. I just use my arrow. I just use my ruler to help me tear a really straight line, and I still get the nice texture of the torn edges, but it doesn't tear all wonky on me. You will see me tear later without my ruler, and it will show you exactly why I always use my ruler, because it ends up turning out awful. So I'm just tearing off another piece of vellum, or not another, but a piece of vellum. That's from my stash. So far, everything except the paints and the vellum has been from the kit. And the stamp, of course, is from my stash. And then it was looking too dark. My problem is, of course, I love bright colors. And so everything that I own is bright. And I was really wanting to have something that looked a little bit more subdued, which is part of why I'm using vellum, is to just tone down this background that I've created. I like how modeled it looks. I like that it's in the middle. This is what Vilna did, was she left I think she said a 1-inch border all the way around. So she just applied the paint in a square in the middle. And of course, Vilna's work is absolutely gorgeous. And I knew that I wasn't feeling confident enough to try some of the other things that she did in that layout. She did some spreading of ink with a paintbrush and some beautiful stuff that I think would have just looked like a big inky mess on this layout. I don't do that kind of stuff. Not here. I do it in my art journal, but I don't usually do it on my layouts. So anyhow, you saw me take some Simple Stories Life in Print papers that came in the kit. So that's that floral one, and then the striped one. And now this is a Jen Hadfield. I really love the bold stripe here. And I'm thinking I can also use this little strip on the manufacturer's strip. And I'm going to use that as a little accent down here, because if I use some red, I want to have it in at least 2 places and maybe 3. So I just cut that strip and put it down in the other corner just to remind myself that I have it and that I want to use it somewhere around there. Now this teardrop paper, because I'm holding boxes of empty Kleenex, and I'm alluding to the fact that people have been crying in my office, which happens. I am a psychologist, and so, people don't typically come to see me when they're feeling all that happy. But I got to work, and there were 3 different Kleenex boxes. I keep them in 3 different places, so no matter what chair you sit in, there's a tissue box close to you, and all 3 of them were empty. So I just picked them up and did a little selfie of myself holding these boxes, and the Snapchat says, does this mean I'm doing a good job or a bad job? I have this little kind of weird look on my face. So it was just kind of like a silly moment. But then I realized that I hadn't scrapbooked work yet. I've definitely art journaled work, and I have project lifed work, but in all these years, I don't think I've ever done a layout about work. I could be wrong, but if I did, I don't remember it. So I'm just going to hand cut some of these teardrops. And then, because I'm famous for losing things, I'm going to just put them in a tray so I don't lose them. And then I thought, wow, my business cards, I keep my extra business cards in my desk. And I thought, and look at that. I turned it over and the card said I had cool hair. And I thought that was just cool. I had never noticed that card there before. It's just like the one that tells you what your order is. It's like a blank card. And on the back it said I had cool hair. And I just was very, taking it way too personally. I was like, oh, thank you. So anyways, I thought I might want to put my business card on this layout. It's sort of the right colors, but I don't think I want to introduce the color green. So I'm going to hold on that. And then those other two little smaller cards are my appointment cards that I give people. They're just smaller versions of my card and they're slightly different. But I thought I might use one of those three or all three of those on this layout, but I'm not going to. I'm having a look at some of the other papers that came in the kit, and this one is the cut-aparts that are exclusive to the kit. So this is a Scraptastic paper, and I really liked this striped, it's like a pinstripe, but on the diagonal paper, the back of the cut-aparts. And so I added it, and I put it right next to the other stripe. And I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to put two stripes together. I usually will spread two stripes around my layers, but I don't know. I just kind of decided, you know what? I'm taking a class and I'm trying to try new things. So let's just put these two stripes together and see how it goes. I also have this bold stripe right here, although it doesn't really read as a stripe because there's such a thin strip of it. It kind of looks more like an alternating strip. Speaking of which, I'm just going to cut another wide. See, look at that. That's how it rips when you don't use a ruler. Anyhow, there, I'm going to fix this up using my ruler just a little bit. And yeah, that looks better with a wider strip of that red and white striped paper. And you see the way that I glue these down is I just work from the top to the bottom. I usually work from the picture down. So I start by matting my photo and then I add the next layer and the next layer until I get to the very bottom. So now I'm thinking about, see this paper here, also exclusive to the Scraptastic Kit Club. This one has all those colors that I love. I am a huge fan of turquoise, red, and yellow as a color scheme. And that's what I've got going on this one. Even though it's really just turquoise and red at this point, I'm planning to use some yellow letters. And so I thought maybe one of those strips would work as a horizontal strip across this, but it kind of goes against my original design, which was to emphasize the vertical line of this photo. This is a Snapchat photo that I printed up and it's very vertical. So it's much more narrow than it is wide. It's 3.5 inches wide by 4 inches long. And so I want the design of this layout to have a very up and down vertical look to it. So these are some stickers that came in the kit. They're silver foil stickers and they're really cute. And so they had the days of the week on them. So I took off Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and just put them over that painting in the background of this photo. Not to necessarily cover that paint. It's actually it's a needlepoint. It's not a painting. But anyhow, it kind of serves to not have that painting be quite so distracting, but also those are the days that I work, the days of the week that I work. So, and I wanted to use this bold camera as an accent here in the corner. So that's what I'm doing with that. And those are die cuts that came in the Scraptastic kit. And then these are plastic clips from Simple Stories from the Life Noted collection that, no, Life in Color. I keep calling it Life Noted. I'm sorry, I probably called it Life Noted when I talked about the pattern paper too. But that is the Life in Color collection, of course. So anyhow, I have the clips and I have a couple of die cuts. I also have die cuts from the Ellie Studio. And all of those die cuts and clips came in the Scraptastic Kit Club kit for this month. So I'm using some wax paper to spell out my words, and I'm going to play around with not putting in the apostrophe in the word days, and I'm just kind of trying to go with it, even though I know an apostrophe goes there. I'm going to call this All in a Day's Work, but the days and the work are the biggest part of this title. I'm going to put all in smaller letters, so I want to kind of make sure I have room for days and work first of all. I just cut off a tiny bit of that Ellie Studio die cut above the word days so that it will fit better. And I'm going to tuck a couple more of these Ellie Studio die cuts into my layers. just for a little bit of interest, both up in the top left-hand corner and in the bottom right-hand corner, which is where most of my clustering is going and where most of my embellishments are going. So I like how that's looking. I've got a tag. I've got one of those plastic clips in each place, and I've got some little tabs in each place, and it's looking, I'm really liking how it's looking. So I'm clearing my space now to get out my typewriter. And this layout has a lot of journaling on it. I'm just at my computer right now. I probably should have cut this out, so I'm sorry, but this layout has a lot more journaling than I usually put. I find that usually a story tells 1,000 words. What is that? A picture tells the story of 1,000 words or something like that. I like my photo and my title to usually tell the majority of my story, and then I just add captions here and there as needed, and sometimes I'll put a little bit of journaling. This particular layout has a lot of journaling, so I will read it to you as I go along. I just have a piece of Stampin' Up! Whisper White cardstock in my typewriter, and I would actually not recommend that you use that in a typewriter because it's too stiff. Like, it keeps not wanting to curl around the roller of my typewriter, and it made a bit of a mess, but that's okay because this is a messy layout, so that's all right. Here's what it says. This is a silly pic of me at work the day. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing it here. There we go. The day there were 3 empty boxes of Kleenex in various places in my office. Although my work can be pretty serious and at times stressful, I truly love the work I do, and the people I get to know are simply inspiring. I feel privileged to be able to know so many people as intimately as I do, and to hear so many stories of how people have become who they are today. Even in their darkest hours, people can be so wonderfully inspiring. I love to see people be brave and slay their dragons, which is some imagery that I sometimes use at work, is talking about, especially with kids, talking about anxieties being a dragon that you have to slay. So you'll see me there whenever I make a mistake. I just go back and forth and back and forth. I've talked about that as a way to avoid using correction tape in your typewriter. I find this is my second old typewriter that I've had, and I find that the correction tape just leaves a big yucky mess everywhere. Maybe it works better on new modern typewriters, but on old ones, it's more hassle than it's really worth. I kind of like the look of mistakes in a typewriter. I think it looks kind of cool. So when I do make a mistake, I just go use backspace and then the letter I meant, and then backspace and the letter I meant, and backspace and the letter I meant, and eventually the letter that I meant to put there is much darker than the accidental letter that I put. So here's me making a mistake that I'm going to have to come back and fix. I'm putting the camera over top of that red strip from the manufacturer strip from the Jen Hadfield paper, and I meant to add some sewing to that before I did it. So I'm starting to stick down all of my embellishments at this point, and I'm using mostly tape for this, like my ATG tape. And I also meant to outline that circle that says All My Heart. And that All My Heart is also in the big 12 by 12 paper that I mentioned at the beginning that I really like. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. I'm going to come back to that towards the end of this layout. So first I'm looking for a roller date stamp. I was going to put a phrase, but all the phrases are just too happy. I mean, happy is good, but I didn't want to trivialize my work. So I just put the date, which was May 17th. It was 2 days ago that I took this picture. And then I'm just sticking that tag in, or not tag, but that little clip in. And I love the clips. They add a deeper color than what is in the collection. Those tags are from the Life in Color collection from Simple Stories. And the tags are such a nice deep color that I love to use them and sprinkle them in amongst my layers that use that collection. So I'm trying to go with the idea of this being a long vertical piece of bunch of stuff in the middle of my 12 by 12 paper. And so I'm going to put the title above and below it so that it emphasizes the long nature of this. So that's what I'm just gesturing there with my hands. The problem is that I have all of these very long horizontal journaling strips, which as I'm cutting them out, I'm realizing, where am I ever going to put these? It's just not going to work with my design, but I don't want to shorten my journaling because everything that's in it is stuff I want to be there. So I'm going to cut my strips, and as I'm cutting it, I'm kind of thinking, now in order to use the light as the guide on my Caterpillar Crop, which is the name of my trimmer that I have there, and it has a light that shines up from the bottom and shows you exactly where you're going to be cutting. I love that feature, but I do have to turn off my studio lights in order to use it because my studio lights are much, much brighter than the light on the trimmer. So I'm going to trim these down and put them in order. And I thought about maybe I could put those two, because the first sentence is different than the other sentences are more serious. I thought I could maybe put those two up at the top and then all the other ones down the side. And then I thought maybe I could put the two less serious ones over to the left and then the other ones over to the right. But then I'm not really enjoying that. I don't like here's what I don't like about it. I don't like how the Snapchat text goes one way and then all the other text goes another way. That just irritates me a little bit. Sometimes I'm particular about that kind of stuff and sometimes I'm not, but today I was. So I'm going to pull this whole thing up and move it over. And actually, I'm also going to move the vellum. So bear with me for a few seconds here while I reposition the vellum. And I just repositioned it so that it was over to the left a little bit more because that's where my photos and my main cluster is going to be. And also so that it was even on the top and the bottom in terms of how much paint was sticking out above and below the vellum. And then I have much more paint sticking out on the right of the vellum than I do on the left. And now I'm just going to trim down my journaling so that it fits in the space that I have just made for it. So this is an example of a time when I had an idea of what a design was going to look like, and I had to be flexible about it and change my mind halfway through and shove everything over to the left in order to make room for my journaling. So what I really wanted with this layout was for it to be a nice, clean, vertical line down, or maybe not clean, but a nice, messy, vertical line right down the middle of this 12 by 12 page and have lots of space over to the right and lots of space over to the left and very little space on the top and the bottom of my vertical design. So that's actually not the way this is going to play out, but I do really like it. It makes use of the entire square behind it, and it makes the square actually make quite a bit more sense. So here I've been looking at this red blob up here the whole time that I've been doing other things and thinking that it's kind of distracting the way that it is. And so I'm going to cut it off before I add my letter stickers. And then you see how I've got that little bit of trapped white. It's not exactly trapped, but there's a little bit of white space in there that it doesn't have anything. And so I'm just going to put another little strip of that Jen Hadfield manufacturer strip right there. And that does two things. It brings the red in that I had just removed because the red was there for a reason, because I wanted there to be red in all three of my corners. So I've got a bit of a visual triangle going on. One point of it is right under the word days. One point of it is kind of down to the left bottom of the photo, and then one is over to the bottom right of the photo. It's sort of a triangle. And now I'm going to put on these Ellie Studio letters that came in the kit, and they are really fabulous. I love the boldness of them, and it balances out that heavy black that's on the camera die cut down in the opposite corner. And now I'm thinking about how I'm going to align this. If I'm going to align the letter A with the top of the letter D, or if I'm going to overhang it a little bit, and I've decided to overhang it a little bit. I typically like things to be aligned, and lately I've been aligning things, but in this case I want it staggered because it's sort of, I think of it as being like three elements: the days, the all in the, and then that tag behind it, and they form a nice little trio there if I layer them that way instead of having them aligned. Yeah, so there's the word work, and I just went ahead and put the W over top of that red piece of paper that's sticking, that tore not so nice there. I left the not so nice tear on the bottom part because I thought it added a little bit of interest. Again, that's that third little hit of red in the bottom left-hand corner, the bottom right-hand corner, but up a little bit more, and then in the top left-hand corner. So now as I've been doing all that, my strips got a little messy, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to space them. I want them to see how the top strip starts just a little bit above my layers and the bottom strip ends a little bit below my layers. I want that. And then I want them to be pretty much aligned left whenever they can. So some of those embellishments are going to prevent me from aligning it left, but I am going to just kind of work around that. I changed glue because I find that using a tape runner for journaling strips is kind of annoying. So I'm using my mono, what is it called? My Tombow, I don't think it's called mono, actually, my Tombow Aqua glue. And this glue is really great for gluing paper to paper. It has a really fine-tipped nozzle so you can control it and put on just a tiny little bit. It's clear and it's great for, as I said, paper to paper, and vellum is just a type of paper. And so you see me use my Tombow Mono Multi quite a lot for when I have to glue heavy things on that I want to make sure that they stick, but paper is pretty light, so I don't have to worry about using such a strong glue. This aqua glue will work fine. So, and you'll notice that I'm just adhering it on the left side so that the part that hangs off the vellum can have a bit of dimension. It basically kind of lifts up off the page a little bit and casts a bit of a shadow, which adds some extra interest. And I just arranged my journaling strips so that they just went right around those embellishments that stick out on the right side of that photo. And here I am thinking about adding those business cards, but then I remembered I had cut out these teardrops, and here I am putting them upside down for some reason. I wasn't quite thinking. And then I thought, I'm going to put a cluster up by the title and then a cluster down here by the other part of the title. So it's kind of flanking the title, one on either side. And now I was just looking for more of that paper because I didn't have the right sizes in the right colors for the bottom. They were too, there's less space in the bottom, so I want to use smaller shapes down there so that it doesn't feel like they're crammed into a small space. Yeah, so I'm just trying to play around with what colors I want of which sizes. I don't want I want the largest one to go right kind of below, diagonally below the letter K. And so therefore I don't want it to be yellow because I don't want the yellow teardrop beside the yellow K. And I'm just, again, going to quickly fussy cut these. And, you know, when you're fussy cutting, just leave a little tiny white border, and you don't, your fussy cutting doesn't have to be perfect because you're not even going to see it. When you see the rough edges on your fussy cutting is when you cut right against the edge of it. Then if you make any little mistakes and jig where you're supposed to jag, you're going to see that because it'll stand out because it's high contrast. Generally speaking, leaving a white border is very, very forgiving so that you're not going to see your mistakes quite as much. And plus, it leaves a cute little white halo around your image and helps it stand out against whatever other things you have it layered on. And so I really like that. So I'm just layering it so that a couple of them are popped and one of them is not in each of those two clusters. And I'm layering it so that two of them are touching each other and one of them is not. They happen to be the same colors. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's just the way it ended up being. I thought for a second there, maybe I'd stick that in, just even only I would know that it's there. Well, you guys all would too, but I decided not to because, again, I didn't want to introduce green. That would just cause a whole lot of problems for me. I'd have to add green somewhere else, and so I just decided not to. So yeah, here I am, and I'm going to put enamel dots on each of these teardrops. And I kind of like that. I think it's kind of cool. I have to put the enamel dots in the bottom left-hand corner of these teardrops and in the bottom right-hand corner of the other ones, just because of the way that they are layered with each other. And then I put enamel dots here too, because I just wanted to bring some interest to these two embellishment clusters here. But that's, even as I did it, I was like, wow, that's like a lot of enamel dots spread all over the place. Like they're not really clustered tightly in the way that, I don't know. If I'm going to use enamel dots in 4 different places, I want them to be 4 really tight clusters. Putting them in 4 different places and spreading them out like this, really, it doesn't even look like they're in 4 places anymore. They're just spread all over the layout. And so you lose the clustering when you put too many clusters of something, they start to blend in. So I'm going to change that eventually. Sorry that I forgot to zoom out here. What I did was I just took the manufacturer's strip off of that giant page that has, it says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. And I'm just going to make a little quick companion page for this. And it's just going to be purely decorative. Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't zoom out. That's so disappointing. Anyhow, it's not much of a process. You're not missing much. I just grabbed a plain page protector and I stuck the page in there. And then I was kind of thinking about toying with the idea of using my fuse and a piece of that 12 by 12 fuse paper and seeing if I can make, I don't know, I thought I definitely want to stick some sequins down here, but I thought, how am I going to control the sequins and make sure that they are where I want them to be and not where I don't want them to be? And then I just experimented with it and realized that I kind of like just them looking random all over it like this. And so here's another mistake. Man, this is a layout with a lot of mistakes. I'm going to put some Martha Stewart white glitter in. So I'm cutting this down first because I need a little lip at the top. I need this paper to be less than 12 inches tall so that after I'm done this, and also after I put another layout on the back side of it, so this is not going to happen today, but the next time I do a layout and I put something in the back side of this, I'm going to use my fuse tool to just close up the top so that this and the other layout will be inside. Now I added white Martha Stewart glitter, and it really just ended up making this whole thing look really dusty because it just clings to the plastic page protector and to the paper, and it just looks like there's gray dust all over everything. It's very, very, very fine glitter. So I grabbed myself a new page protector and cleaned off my paper, as you saw, and now I just dumped out the sequins, and I'm going to take a second piece of paper towel and I'm just wetting it, and I'm just going to blot the sequins. My thinking was that all of that dusty glitter is probably going to cling to a wet paper towel and not to the sequins. Some of it did stick to the sequins. Sorry about my hair poking in the way there. So most of that glitter is now gone. Enough of it that it certainly doesn't have that dusty look anymore. Added a couple of white sequins just for good measure there. And oh, I love that. It's so cute. I can't wait to seal it all up so that it's permanent. But I'm going to wait because I'm just showing you I'm going to do that, and thumbs up for that. So here are my 2 layouts. I mean, I don't know if I can call that other one a layout or not. So I stopped and took pictures and put my video on the computer and did all sorts of things. And then those enamel dots that seemed like they were spread all over my layout were just really irritating me. So I put my camera back on and grabbed some sequins, and 2 things. First of all, this is a way to get rid of those enamel dots that were bothering me. And second of all, this is a way to bring sequins onto this page, which will be right beside the other page that has lots and lots of sequins. So it kind of serves to tie the 2 pages together. The 2 pages already look really good together because they have a similar color scheme and they use papers from the same, like the Scraptastic exclusive teardrop paper, for example, has those same colors because the paper is in the companion page is one of the exclusive Scraptastic papers. Sorry about that. I had trouble getting that sentence out. Yeah, so I just replaced each of those 6 or 5 enamel dots, and here I am. I've also decided, while I have my layout out and my camera on, I'm going to add some ink splatters to this. So this is Liquitex black ink that I've been planning to buy for so long, and I thought I bought some quite some time ago, and it's not in my room. I must have not wrung it through. In fact, the lady at Michael's almost didn't ring this through. It was left on the desk behind, and I almost walked away, and I said, wait a minute, my ink. So I got it in black and in gold, and I'm just going to use the black today. And I'm sorry, once again, I didn't zoom out so that you could see the process of this, but basically this ink has, oh, there you go. It has this dropper, and it's like a medicine dropper type of thing. And it leaves, what I love about it is that the ink is really black. Christine Davidson was using this beside me at Crop and Create this past March, I guess it was. And oh, here's a tip for you. It will stain your mat, because it took a lot of elbow grease for me to get that black smear off of my mat. So be careful with that Liquitex ink. If you have some, it will stain your mat. But I did get it off. Just because I caught it while it was still wet. So I love that ink. So here I am, and I'm just showing you how I have sewn 2 lines down each of those red strips, and I took those off. Again, I went back to my computer and started doing the video again, and I was like, I forgot to put the stitching on the red. So I went back and I pulled those off, and then I ran them through my sewing machine, and here I am. I'm just putting them back. So my bobbin has a very light green thread in it, and the thread that I used for this was silver. So I just, I wanted to leave the little threads hanging, but I didn't want the green threads to show. So I just cut off the bobbin threads and left the silver threads hanging. And now I'm going to make 2 little circular wads of thread, and it's that silver thread. It's by Coats, and it's really beautiful. I have it in gold, silver, and bronze, although my gold is almost gone. And I'm just using more of that Tombow aqua glue. And here's another little, and this one is smaller. And I'm just tucking it into a place where I think needs a little bit more detail and interest. And then I'm lifting up the paper and squeezing in some glue so that it lands on the majority of the threads under there, just to hold it in place. And I'm going to take a picture of that because it looks so pretty. And then in a second, I'm going to show you the close-ups of this one. So there's that ink. It's not quite dry yet, but it dries absolutely gorgeous. Way nicer than any other black ink that I have in my mist collections. So, and I do think that the layout looks nicer with those sequins and the added thread and the ink splatters. It just kind of finishes it off. I think I was in a rush to move on. I have an idea for another layout that I really want to get to today. So I think I was just rushing a little bit too much at the end there. It's important to take your time and make sure that you finish off all the details, because the details are what make your layout really look amazing. So here are the close-up photos. I hope that you enjoy them. I had to take photos of these are the third set of photos of this layout. And then there's the photo of that extra one as well. And then there they are both together. That's how they're going to look in my album. So thanks so much for watching. Have a really great scrappy week.